icon of the tournament. So I'm not surprised to see some players do that.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and sap myself so that I can go watch this fun match. Rooting for Jackie Chan, obviously, but you guys have a good cast.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Rob.
So we are going to start the game off with Jackie Chan and his tempo Yogg mage with spell slingers and such in, because why not? More spells, more spells, more spells is what he's aiming for. And it's going to be versus Ostkaka's Miracle Rogue with the Leroy in there for the sort of finish burst. So it's going to be an interesting one to cast here, because who are you actually even favouring in this matchup? Because I guess we can look at the matchups sort of, and half forget about Yogg a little bit, because he likes to do his own thing. It's not really not really something you can plan for. But in terms of just the more generalization of Tempo Mage versus Rogue, what do you think is going to happen?
There's a couple of tech choices I think that the Tempo Mage can make that make a pretty big difference. Mirror Image is one thing. I know a lot of Tempo Mages have been putting one in because of it's so good against Warrior and Rogue. It can block your early minions, lead to sort of a snowball effect. Putting pressure on the Rogue is the one way to either make them blow resources or, just kill them before they can get that miracle effect off. So, being able to protect those early minions, having a good curve, those are some things you're looking for. And as the Rogue, in the Rogue, your game plan is pretty much the same in every matchup. Kill the stuff on the board early, get Auctioneer down, and draw into all your stuff.
Exactly. Whenever Rogue can start the game very efficiently and just remove those first couple of minions, maybe have an SI on the board, and then just go straight into Tomb Pillager, that's when you start to get in a little bit of trouble against Rogue. But what's interesting here is both of these decks actually always want the coin. It actually makes a big impact for both these guys. So the coin's really good, as it is still classed as a spell for Yogg, of course, but also to combine with Flame Waker for an additional burst power from that card. And the Rogue, obviously, the class that's always wanted the coin no matter what, to make the combos and gadgets and draws much easier. So Jackie Chan's sort of winning on that front, and Water Elemental coming into hand. It's a card we've seen more and more often now in Tempo Mage. It sort of replaced the Shredder that we've lost since the Standard. And it's very scary because there's so many weapon classes at the moment. You can just lock those cards out of the game almost if the Water Elemental isn't dealt with. Yeah,
and Sottle sort of mentioned it in the last game, or the last match where we saw Bloodhoof Brave, and he talked about the 6 health at 4 mana mark. And that benchmark is so hard to deal with. It doesn't even get matched by a Tomb Pillager, even though the attacks don't line up, but Tomb Pillager is considered one of the strongest 4-drops, because even 4 health can sometimes be problematic with such high attacks. So wow, so Spellslinger played already, and Confuse is the spell that Jackie Chan gets, and Divine Spirit is what Ostkaka gets.
Yeah, really interesting, both priest cards there, but to be honest, Confuse is definitely correct for Jackie Chan, because I feel any opponent that plays against him is normally confused, as you just have no idea. Even although Ostkaka knows what's in the list, anything could still happen here, so it's very crazy. It'll be interesting to see how Jackie Chan actually decides to utilize that card, and if it comes into two, because I feel like with that card, it either does something crazy or nothing whatsoever.
Yeah, that's very true. And, it seems like that's Spellslinger in a nutshell. Either you get something that does something crazy or something that does nothing whatsoever.
It's all more spells to feed to Yogg, though, so Jackie Chan will probably be happy regardless. And this is one of the starts where we were talking about with Rogue that hasn't been too quick. Normally, you would have liked to actually just kill that 3-4 with a combo of an SI7 agent, have that down, and then go straight into Tomb Pillager. And instead, Ostkaka's actually just just played the Thanos, as he realizes he kind of just wants more cycle. Thanos isn't going to do too much for another few turns anyway, so I'll just cash in on that card draw.
Yeah, so the one thing about, I talked about earlier, pressure meaning something really big in this matchup for the Tempo Mage.
Sorry, Jackie Chan just chuckling.
Oh, wow.
Innovate seems okay.
Yeah, but the pressure even means a lot more nowadays, because Rogues sort of lost their comeback mechanic with Blade Flurry. They didn't lose it, but, they effectively lost it.
Yeah.
It's just too expensive now, and with the loss of, Tinker, Sharp Soil, and without too many solid, consistent weapon buff cards, it's hard to justify putting a 4-mana Blade Flurry that only hits minions in your decks as a way to sort of clear a big board. So they have to rely on keeping up with the board. They have to rely on, getting ahead of these big minions that are coming out, because all they have is, Blade Flurry, Fan of Knives, and minions to sort of deal with that early aggression.
Yeah, exactly. And this is really interesting choice now for Jackie. He can actually innovate out the Faceless Summoner and then see what happens to create even more board presence. If he does that, though, he can't very easily deal with this Tomb Pillager, which is going to be frustrating. He could just play the Water Elemental, maybe even innovate out just a ping to run one of the minions in and kill it. Or he could even wait and save the innovate for some crazy Antonidas stuff later on.
There are some 3-drops that could allow him to deal with this. Raid Leader, is one. Wolf Rider would allow him to trade into it.
I'm
trying
loving
to
the
think what other...
extensive 3-drop
Yeah.
knowledge here, TJ. Schooling me on this.
I played a lot with Faceless Summoner, and there's some that are really good, there's some that are really bad. King Mukla is one of the ones that's really good as well, because you don't really get the downside of giving your opponent bananas. So you basically get 2 5/5s for 6 mana, which is absurd.
It's kind of crazy. He does just go for the Elemental. He is going to keep hold of the Innovate, as it can have quite a huge impact later with Antonidas.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's got Sorcerer's Apprentice, he can start generating a lot of very cheap fireballs with that card on the turn he plays Antonidas. Because a turn 7 Antonidas, you're not really expecting too much. It's normally of like, I just have to play this to just put something on the board, hope it lives, then build off that. But being able to just straight away at least just get a Fireball, just swap the Innovate for a Fireball could be huge. And now Osaka's got to really think about how he wants to deal with this board. Fan of Knives looks like it might get some work done. Maybe slam onto the 3/3. Fan of Knives and trade the Tomb Pillager in seems as clean as possible. But that's the problem now. Like, the Rogue does all this and then leaves a 3/4 up. So then, the Mage is going to start to just continue the work on here. But we do see the Divine Spirit go down.
Yeah,
5/8 seems pretty okay.
Yeah, there was that the move you made as well, and there was also using Slam. He could have nearly cleared the board with a Slam as well, plus the SI7 agent.
Yeah.
Even used his dagger to attack on the Water Elemental. He would have frozen his face for the next turn, but taken out that Water Elemental, so he wouldn't have had that recurring freeze. But he does have a Deadly Poison, which he might want to use going into the next turn, since his resources are a little slim as far as spells go.
Yeah, that's the interesting point, isn't it? Because versus Rogue, especially because Blade Flurry's gone and there's no more oil anymore, the Water Elemental isn't as impactful as, say, versus Warrior.
Yeah.
But with the Deadly Poison in hand, you're like, oh, okay, well, I kind of want to attack with this and push for the extra damage, even if he just plans on using it to combo with gadgets and to increase the cycle. But on Jackie's end of town, it's got a lot of options here. It looks like he might just go for the card draw and really build up for this sort of crazy environment.
Yeah, I think that's the reason why he's been holding on to this Innervate and these cheaper spells. I think he's had some better tempo plays that would sort of fit, make the board stronger. Like the Faceless Summoner last turn, innervating that out instead of the Water Elemental. But he really wants to make sure that he's going to get a lot of value.
Yeah, and I think this is good, because what Jack is doing here is he's just constantly assessing the state of the game, and he's took no damage. The Rogue's not really in the kind of crazy control they normally are at this point if they have a good opening hand versus their opponent. So it's like, you know what, I'm actually going to wait a few turns and then just absolutely decimate you with it, like a completely ridiculous Antonidas turn, and just pressure the Rogue out, because Rogues are only really running like one Farseer commonly now, so it's not like they have any real heal that you're going to be afraid of when you can just chain fireballs.
The thing is, against a Rogue, if you're not far ahead in the early game, sometimes that means you're behind. Because Rogues did lose a lot of those tools for the early game, and going into the turn 7, if you haven't managed to put on enough pressure with a deck like Tempo Mage, you might find yourself in a position where you're looking at a place where you're just going to get your minions sapped every turn, and the Rogue's just going to draw through almost their entire deck and be able to pressure you out of the game. So he does want to make sure that he's applying a decent amount of pressure, but you're right, he still wants to make sure that he gets value out of the Antonidas and tries to close out this game in a speedy fashion.
Yeah, Osaka does equip the poison there and just goes for the Van Cleef. Again, this Tomb Pillager doing some work with the help of that Divine Spirit.
Yeah.
And putting a 4/4 on the board, nothing to sniff at, but I'm not 100% sure, because I can't remember every card in these deck lists, but a lot of Temple Mage have been running like a single Flame Strike. And in the sort of the slower game we're seeing at the moment in terms of deck choices, it's pretty powerful, and also it just negates the Gadgets and Conceal turn, as it's one of the few options Mage has to actually just straight up deal with that creature. So it'll be interesting if Jackie Chan's actually running that card, but he doesn't have it in hand now, because that would be very nice to just clear off these guys.
Yeah, and I think that it wasn't the main reason why Mages put in the Flame Strike in the first place, because it was at the very beginning when players didn't realize how strong Miracle Rogue was going to be. But it's one of the reasons why they kept it in there.
It's definitely a nice bonus, right?
Yeah, they realized, wait a second, a lot of classes struggle against Rogue trying to deal with a Concealed Auctioneer, but we have a fantastic spell that lines up right on the same turn.
Antonidas is going to come out from the Innovate, and it's interesting that the Innovate was used to play Antonidas, so he didn't get the Fireball from that instead. But he did get out earlier, clear off the Tomb Pillager at last. That guy's been a bit pesky for him for many turns now. And now he's just sort of saying to Osaka, you kind of need to deal with this. And again, if he has to run his Van Cleef in and say maybe Eviscerate if he doesn't have a sap, then again the mage is just in a more and more secure position. He's not under any real pressure.
Yeah, and at the moment, Ostkaka doesn't have a way to stealth his Auctioneer and remove the Archmage Tinnitus from the board. His face is frozen, so if he plays Gadgetzan Auctioneer and say coins and Eviscerate, he needs to pick up a preparation sometime in that sequence, which he'll have, a few draws to do it in order to use that conceal at the very end of his turn.
He looks like he isn't going to risk it. I was just going to say,
He can Fan of Knives, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you're playing Rogue with Gadgetzan, sometimes you do just have to presume you're going to draw it, right?
Yeah.
So you just have to make the play. But with the Slam, he does have the additional benefit of drawing a card, as well as 100% just clearing the Antonidas off and just getting that massive threat off the board. But look at Jackie's hand, Tempo Mage used to just run out of juice very quickly, right? And whether it's the way this matchup has gone with Ostkaka maybe not getting the very perfect opening and the quick start, but Jackie Chan's still got so much juice left that he can just almost do whatever he wants this turn. He probably is going to look at trying to remove that Van Cleef though, just to get it off the board and again open up the Rogue to have to actually just get something from the board again and start building up more pressure.
Yeah, and he also has the flexibility of the Ethereal Conjurer to pick up an additional burn spell if he needs to. So he can be pretty liberal with his burn spells right now. You even say, Flame Waker, Frostbolt, and using Arcane Missiles just to push that extra face damage in. And, maybe even be able to grab a Fireball off the Ethereal Conjurer or grab an additional
Pyroblast.
Oh, man.
if you want to go forward. That might actually be an okay pick. I mean, Ice Barrier is one of those safe picks. I'm just going to gain 8 because Rogue does normally have to hit you with a minion or a physical attack. I love it though. He is going for the Pyroblast, and now he's just identifying that, I'm actually just going to set up lethal, that there's not much you can do about it. He has Fireball Ping next turn. He has turns he can just, bide his time with, maybe just play the Faceless Summoner to just put more targets on the board for the Rogue to try and deal with. But this is definitely scary, and this is what happens with the Discover mechanic, right? It's so cool. The second you play a card like this, you are, oh god, he could have Ice Block, he could have Pyroblast, he could have, maybe even pull a Flame Strike and then deal with this Gadgetzan. There's so many weird things that can come out. It's very difficult to play around, but Ostkaka is going to get his Gadgetzan down. Does get the stealth off, so at least the Van Cleef isn't just pingable and removable in that easy fashion. But now he's going to see how he's going to choose to deal with this Conjurer.
Yeah, basically Jackie Chan is going to have a 2-turn window where he could die. Because, he's still just going into turn 8. So Pyroblast is still 2 turns away from even being castable. Next turn he could go with Flame Waker, Arcane Missiles, Fireball, just start throwing burn at the face, but he's still not setting up for that 2-turn lethal. He still has to find something to do in between there. And now that Ostkaka has a concealed Auctioneer, that's one of the scariest things to be going up against, especially when you don't have AoE. And we did look up that Jackie Chan does run 1 Flame Strike in his Tempo Mage list. He hasn't drawn it, and that was sort of his window right there.
Yeah. And this is where things can get a little bit rough for Jackie. We did say earlier that Ostkaka didn't get off to the best start in the world, but as you quite rightly mentioned, if you can get that Gadgetzan out and you're not just dead the next turn, then you can do some pretty crazy things. There's definitely a reason this deck is called Miracle Rogue, but with Arcane Missiles like that, wow, do you actually just go for this?
I think the Fireball is heading at the face anyway.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, why not?
So you might as well and just hope that it gets the Auctioneer, and it doesn't.
Well, 2 to face regardless. A second Cold Blood is picked up for Ostkaka though, so doesn't have he does run Leroy in this list, right? So he doesn't have the Leroy access to anything like Ultra Burst, but he does have an Eviscerate and 2 Cold Bloods. It's
funny, the evolution of the Miracle Rogue in Standard was a pretty interesting ride, because at the beginning, people just weren't running win conditions. Yeah. They weren't running Leroy Jenkins, they weren't running Malagos, they were just running Auctioneers and just a bunch of good minions like Violet Teacher.
Yeah, just relying on winning through card advantage, right? And just having more cards and doing just more stuff than your opponent.
But that's so funny that the deck is so strong that people weren't even putting in a win condition, they were just overpowering their opponents with sheer card draw. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. And then everybody realized I need something to win. But this is going to be looking pretty grim for Jackie Chan.
It's all about this next draw, right?
Yeah, he is really close to closing out the game. He just needs a Fireball, and he still has 2 natural Fireballs left in his deck. The Fireball that he has played came off of the Archmage Antonidas.
Yeah.
So, you know, that it's a decent shot. He can't rely on getting the Kabbalist Tome Fireball because he won't have enough mana to fit in a ping, and he doesn't have a spell power or the Flamewaker on the board anymore.
Yeah, it's definitely a rough one. Is there any chance you go for Conjurer to try and maybe get an Ice Block or something to just give yourself one more draw?
Yeah.
Give yourself one more turn to just play Pyroblast, should I say. He didn't really need the draw after that.
Yeah.
I think that might be his only out here. He can make, like... Oh, he can't make the Kajizang because it's stealth, right?
Yeah.
So
face a summoner, nothing's really going to protect you.
Nope.
You know your opponent's been through so much of their deck. You can get a Silverback Patriarch or a Tauren Warrior. As for your taunt 3-drops.
I think...
But they're not going to protect him.
You continue to impress me with your 3-drop knowledge, TJ, but I'm pretty sure after you've seen a Rogue pretty much draw their whole deck, and you know there's Leroy in there, you're
and
like,
there's a sap.
need something a bit special. So what's going to come out? Oh, another Pyro, and Intellect, and nothing else.
He can actually kill off the Auctioneer with the Arcane Explosion and the Cold Sorcerer. So he can kill off the Auctioneer.
Yeah, well, let's be honest, yeah, it is the play, right? You're not dead on board. You're probably dead to the million cards the Rogue has in hand, but you're not actually just straight up dead there.
I'm almost out of cards.
Shiv is definitely going to help with that. He did have the SI7 agent. He did have the Shiv now, but yeah, it didn't matter. Jackie Chan pretty much just knowing after that Conjurer that it was game. And we saw there just the power of especially both Auctioneers.
Yeah.
He didn't even need the second one, but having them available and then just